So again, the idea is it's up to the artist. It depends how much money you want and what kind of risk profile you're looking for. Because as I said, you may want to just give up a small amount and roll the dice that I'm going to be super successful over the next 2 years, or you may want to like hedge your bets and say, okay, I would like to get $30,000 now in the bank, certain, so that I can definitely make those videos I want to make. And, I'm happy to give up a larger percentage for that. Again, fully up to the artist.
Welcome to the New Music Business Podcast. I'm your host, Ari Herstand, author of How to Make It in the New Music Business. Today, my guest is John Funge. He is the CEO and co-founder of The Music Fund. They are a startup company that issue advances to artists for their streaming revenue. This is a very innovative company. Now, they're not a record label, even though, labels typically are the ones issuing advances to artists. They are innovating and disrupting in the music industry. As I dug deeper and interviewed artists that were using them, it seemed like a very cool company. So we have partnered. They're a partner of Ari's Take. And this interview with John, he actually discusses the business model of how this works, how the advances work, and how they can actually pay out all of this money to small independent artists. As always, please like, follow, subscribe to the podcast, however you're listening to this. Leave a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. That really helps. Like if this is like the second, third, or fourth interview, just pause this right now. Head over to Apple Podcasts and just leave a review real quick and then come on back. It super, super helps. Thank you. Find me on Instagram or Twitter. I'm at Ari Herstand. Or you can find the company, Ari's Take, at Ari's Take on Instagram and Twitter as well. And remember to visit aristake.com and subscribe to the email list. If you're not on the email list, you're missing a lot of great information. I send out info on the industry. I talked about how, if you live in the States, how you can secure some of that sweet CARES Act benefits, funding, PUA, UI, PPP, loan forgiveness, insurance, blah, 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 blah. All of that, how you get free money during this crazy, crazy time. I'm keeping up with that, so check it out. Sign up for the email list. You'll be notified every new podcast we release. All right, let's kick in the show. John, welcome to the show. Where are you coming to me from? Yeah, where are you based?
San Francisco Bay Area. So right now I'm in Los Altos.
Cool. And how has the quarantine been treating you? I know, California has been kind of doing the in and out dance, as I guess everyone has been doing. We open up, we shut down, we open up. Where are you at right now? Is everything like shut back down?
It's been a mixture. So I think restaurants are still open for like sitting outside and stuff.
Okay.
But it's not been too bad. We were already working from home for a couple of days a week at the Music Fund. Yeah. So we've just sort of extended that to full-time working from home. So it's obviously can be a bit of a, things can go a bit slower, but it's been fine.
All right, cool. So, well, this is actually, I'm very excited to dig in with you and talk to you and kind of get the story behind the Music Fund and to help kind of people in the industry understand what you do, because I think it's such a interesting new model. And as longtime listeners, readers of Ari's Take, they know that I am no fan of the major label system out there. And anytime I see any company out there that is enabling artists and managers and independents in the industry to buck the major label system, or at least find a way to do it on their own, and I try to highlight those programs. Labels can be right for some people in the right time in their career. But what we're seeing in the new music industry is that, it's not necessary to run a successful music career with a label. However, the biggest blockade for most artists is funding. And one of the most attractive things why so many artists decide to sign with a label is because they can offer an upfront advance. And, that is something that the industry is still struggling to figure out on the independent side, is how do you solve that problem? And the problem is artists, even if they're fairly successful and may make a very good middle or upper middle class living when they're touring. They might need a large amount of capital to do various projects, music videos, marketing, what have you. And labels traditionally, other than like a bank loan, have been really one of the few ways that artists can do that. So explain to me the Music Fund's model, and then we'll go backwards to kind of how you got started with it. But just so listeners who have no idea what you are and what this is, they're now very intrigued. Explain to me how the Music Fund works.
Right. So as you said, one of the key things that we want to enable is that artists can stay independent as long as possible, perhaps for their whole career. So yeah, absolutely, that's the goal. And so, as you suggested, what we do is we offer financing to artists, but the way we do that has some unique features that we're trying to be as artist friendly as possible. So one of the key things is that when an artist takes money from us, what we do is we buy a percentage of their royalty stream, of their back catalogue, for a fixed period of time. So what that means is the artist doesn't take on any debt. It's not a loan. And at the end of the period of time, so for example, if we give you $10,000, say, for 2 years, for 10% of 5 songs, something like that, say, at the end of that 2 years, you owe us nothing, even if we haven't fully recouped. So, for example, if we only got back 9,000, we just take the hit. Obviously, we hope that we'll do better than that, and we hope we'll make 11,000 or something like that, and that's the business model. But if we haven't, we just take that hit, and the artist owes us nothing.
So just to clarify, you give you write a check to an artist, an upfront amount. So you're saying like $10,000,
Right.
And you're saying that you're going to then make 10% of the streaming revenue. Now, this is not ownership, right? You're not buying a part of the copyright.
That's right. Yeah. So the artist, we don't buy any of the copyright. The artist maintains complete control. So what it says in the legal contract is that we're buying an interest in a royalty stream. So we're buying like a percentage of the royalty stream for a certain number of tracks. That again, the artist has complete control over what they sell us. So we're trying to turn things around. Yeah. So currently in the music industry, it's very much like, a record label, for example, will suggest an amount to you, but we're sort of trying to turn it around. So the artist says, "This is what I'd like to sell. How much will you give me for it?" Like, so it's up to the artist to control the percentage, the amount of time, which tracks, and we'll just make them an offer for what it is they want to sell us.
And how do you come up with the offer of how much money that you're going to give to them?
Right. So that's the other cool thing about what we're doing is that everything is automated. So everything is based on data and algorithms. So there's no people there's no people, you won't speak to anyone. So the whole thing is automated. You just come to our website, you upload data. So the kind of data would be your royalty statements, your Spotify for Artists account, your Apple Music for Artists account. And then we use that data, or rather our algorithms use that data to determine, and again, this is only for your back catalog. So our algorithms will predict based on history and the other data that we have and what we've seen from other artists, how much do we think you're going to make? So we might say, okay, looking at this data, it looks like you're going to make, we think you're going to make $11,000, for example, over the next 2 years. So that's why, and we'll give you 10,000 of that right now. Obviously, it's up to the artist. If the artist wants to wait 2 years, they'll end up with 11,000. But the advantage of getting 10,000 now is that I can take that money and invest it in my career. I can make new tracks, and then hopefully I'll make, overall I'll make more money because I'll make new music, and that new music, who knows, will generate like 20,000 or 50,000.
Sure.
And so the amount that you end up as a total percentage giving us is less. And again, that's not going to be for everyone. If you're not an active artist, you may just prefer to wait, and that's fine. But if you want to invest in your career, you want to stay independent, then having that money now so that you can invest it and make a music video or whatever it is you want to do some marketing, then that can be attractive.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. So, so that's, so there's no ownership. And
Right.
it's based on the data that your algorithms kind of come up with and your system comes up with based on what you
Right.
think, they will, they are going to make in a couple years. So I understand that.
Right.
Now, I guess, you know, my question would be like, does this model actually work? Because like what we've seen in streaming, I mean, granted, like when did the Music Fund get started?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I just wanted to add one more point about
Sure.
the features, just to emphasize the fact that we're not taking anything from your future work. It's only back catalog. So I think that's an important point to emphasize.
So if we strike a deal today on one of, let's say I want to choose my last album that came out in 4 years ago and it's been doing pretty well, but I'm going to release a song next week. This is not on all future releases. This literally we just like choose the songs you want.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's nothing. No. We don't. So unlike a sort of typical music label deal, we don't have any interest in your future work. So your future work is completely unencumbered by anything that you sign with us. We're only doing back catalog. So I just want to emphasize that. And then, yeah. So your question about where did this come from? There's a interesting story about where this came from because so my co-founder and I were actually working at another company called Winton. And so what Winton was a traditional kind of investment firm that actually used data and algorithms to buy things like stocks and commodities and bonds. So and the interesting thing is their business model is to make a large number of small bets. And again, they were able to do that because they use data and algorithms. So for example, you've probably heard of Warren Buffett. He's the opposite of that. He's making a small number of large bets using his, expertise. And so you can make the analogy that that's what the music labels are doing. There's somebody sitting there and they're trying to say like, do I go big on this artist? Am I going to bet big on this artist? And they probably have a lot of, just like Warren Buffett, they probably have a lot of skill of doing that, but it's a very labor intensive task. And so that means they want to like concentrate on the high end artists and, because there's a lot of time and effort in.
Well, and their
in
success
that.
rate is not very good. I mean, it's been estimated that over 99% of artists that sign to major labels fail, meaning they don't actually recoup the cost of their advance to where they would get an offer for a second option for the first option for the second album, basically, and then they get dropped before the second album or sometimes second single. And so, the just based on the numbers of the major label system, their bottom line works out because when they do have a quote unquote success story, it pays for the 99% of other artists that fail. And to them, it's a successful model because they're, for every artist that we've never heard about that got signed for $250,000 and then gets dropped because they didn't make any money back. There's a Billie Eilish and then pays for everything else, or there's an Adele, or there's a Beyonce, or whatever, and so it's that's their model. So which they're not
exactly. So Yeah, so I think I want to be as charitable as possible. That they have some skill, probably more so than our algorithms. I think is fair to say. Although hopefully, over time that our algorithms will get better. And also our algorithms aren't trying to predict the next big hit, which is obviously what as you said, like the music labels are looking for Billie Eilish. All our algorithms are trying to predict is something more mundane. We're just trying to predict like what do we think this back catalog is going to do over the next two years, for example. So it's we're not trying to find the next big hit, and our business model doesn't rely on that. But just to quickly go finish up the sort of origin story. So we were working in the sort of research lab in San Francisco of this company, and we were our goal was to try and find new applications for this technology, this technology that could like make predictions about future income. And so we ended up talking to some people in the music industry, kind of like by accident, really. But it was then that we realized the challenges that artists faced, and we thought, oh, hang on a minute, maybe we can adapt this model that we have working, in the stock market, and we could apply that to music financing. And so we did some back testing to see whether it would make sense from a business. And the key thing to understand there is that it makes sense as a business if you win on average. So just like in the stock market, if I make like 1,000 trades and I win on 60% of those, but I lose on 40%, then I'm going to make money. So we realized we could take that same model and apply it to the music industry. And the great thing about that is that we don't have to make money on every single deal. And so that's why we have these features that are super artist friendly, where we don't have to fully recoup the amount. So it's a different business model to most people in the music industry, because we're just trying to make money on average. We're not trying to make money on every single deal. Obviously, if our algorithms are terrible and we lose money on every single deal, that would be a disaster. But as long as we make money on average, there's a reasonable business. And the cool thing is that we can offer these artist-friendly features as a consequence of that business model.
So, and how long has the Music Fund been operating?
Yeah, so we actually span out of Winturn as a separate company at the end of 2018, and we got into Techstars Music shortly after that. And so in 2019, we were down in LA doing the Techstars Music Accelerator, which was a fantastic experience, because that really got us in connection with many people in the music industry. Because obviously, given our my co-founder is a musician, but we didn't have a lot of connections in the music industry. But Techstars Music really put us in touch with many people in the music industry, and to be honest, when we first started this, we weren't quite sure what kind of reaction we would get from people in the music industry. But I think artists, more than anyone, realize how difficult it is to raise money and get money to invest in your career. And so they've just embraced this model very enthusiastically. So it's been a great reaction.
Yeah, I mean, so what I like about it, as opposed to kind of how the labels operate, because like you said, you're not going to make money on every single deal, but that doesn't matter. But what I do like is the difference is that when, labels don't expect to make their money back on every deal either. Like I said before, 99% of the artists, they're not going to actually make any money on. The difference is the labels own all of the masters. They have re-recording clauses in there. They have, and there's a lot of restrictions. A quote from Prince, he's like, he said straight up, major labels are like slavery. I would encourage everyone not to sign. That is a Prince quote. Right. So it's like, and the reason that he says that is because a major label contract is 100 pages long, and there's so many restrictions in there, and they own everything, and they restrict all your movements and everything there. I've seen your contract. It's not that long. It's and it's very straightforward. Like I was reading your contract, and I'm like, where are they trying to fuck me? Like, because that's what I look at whenever I see any contract. I'm like, it doesn't really seem like there is much opportunity for that here. It's like, because you're not owning anything. And I spoke with a few artists that you struck deals with, who like, it's very easy. It's pretty straightforward. They just give me money. We plug them into the back end. They're using DistroKid, and they just like set up payment splitting. So it's like you're a collaborator. It's like you're a producer that worked on the track, and the DistroKid pays you directly. And so it's like, if it doesn't work out, like you said, there's no requirement for them to pay you anything or anything like that. It's just like, and so you're going to make money. Yeah.
Well, the other cool thing is it's for a limited time. Like when you sign a deal with a music label, it's typically for a long time. We are willing to do longer deals if an artist wants more money, but you can do for as short as 2 years, and so you can just try it out. You could just sell us like a very small percentage for 2 years, and if you don't like it, then you don't have to do it again. So you have full control. We also don't care what you do with the money. Obviously, we hope that you're going to take that money to invest in your career, like make a video, do some merchandising, but you can spend it on whatever you want. There's no restriction. If you want to, spend it on like rent or, getting drunk, that's fine. It's like, there's no restriction.
So what's the catch? I mean, it's kind of like, all right. So I'm assuming that not every artist, that has no history can be like, hey, can you give me $10,000 today, please?
Right.
Like, so you're really just looking at artists that, because here's my other question. It's like, I'm very curious on how your algorithm works, because like, as well as I do, as every artist knows, like, I get included on a playlist today, and I start getting hundreds of thousands of streams a month or millions. It's like, I'm going to make a lot of money from that. But I could get dropped from that playlist in 3 months, and then I'm back down to zero. So like, how do you work out, how do you account for those probabilities and just those variances and variables in streaming?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. So the way we do that is, again, it comes back to this concept of winning on average. So I think one of the things that so my background is like machine learning, AI, data science, those kind of things, and I think we tend to think about the world in a very probabilistic way, which I think is not necessarily how most people think about things. So you're right that any one track can be really hard to predict. It's like so a good example is if I'm tossing a coin, 5 times, I might get 5 heads in a row. I might get no heads. Like all sorts of things could happen. But if I toss 1,000 coins for then I'm pretty certain that I'm going to get about 500 heads and about 500 tails. So that's why it works, is by doing it at scale. It's true that any one artist, this artist may do amazingly well, this artist may do really badly, but by looking at the data and lots of data, we can see that on average, this is how artists do. So if we can do this at scale, then it works out on average. It's like basically we are trying to predict how many heads will we get if we toss a coin 1,000 times, even if like each toss of the coin, we may be wrong. Like, it could go badly, it could go well. And that's just to tie that up. That sort of ties into your point about what's the catch. So the catch is the artist is giving up some upside. So for example, if we buy 10% of this song and this song does amazingly well, they are giving up 10% of that upside. So, they have to be comfortable with that. I think the way, and again, it's for a limited period of time, and it's only on that back catalog, which is why we think it's a reasonable bet, because as an artist, what I'm doing is I'm locking in that income now. I'm getting that money up front rather than rolling the dice. But obviously, if you're an artist and you firmly believe that I'm going to hit it big, then you might not want to give up that upside, and that's fine. But it's kind of like how do you handle risk? And there's some risk that might not happen. And so if you sell a percentage of that, so that I lock that in now and I have that $10,000 now that I can definitely spend on a video, then there's an advantage to that. But every artist has to make that determination for themselves, of course.
Sure. So this is so the artist that you've been working with on this. And have you seen kind of do you stay in touch with them and how they use the money? I know you have no restrictions, but like, have you heard of any stories of artists coming to you and kind of saying why they're looking for this upfront advance?
Yeah, we have. I think we have a couple of testimonials on our website from artists, and I think one of the most common uses is that artists have used it to make videos. It's fun to see some of the videos that they've made with the money. Back before the pandemic, I think many artists were interested in using the money to fund tours, for example, and then other artists have been using it for merchandising and advertising and those kind of things. Just quickly, I wanted to also say, in terms of what are some of the catches. It's not really a catch, but there's sort of a qualification criteria. We do, because we're using data and algorithms, we do need a certain amount of history in order to make predictions. So we do currently require 2 years worth of history. So I think that's important for people to understand. Our algorithms are not magic. We can't just. I mean, it would be great if our algorithms could just like listen to your music and say like, okay, we think this one's going to be a hit. But that, unfortunately, that's still science fiction at this point. Although, it would be
coming.
Good to get that.
Watch out.
yeah, exactly. We definitely would
AI
like that.
is getting a little crazy right now.
Yeah, exactly.
They're saying like, oh yeah, they're not going to be songwriters in the future. They're going to write the perfect pop song. I'm like, oh my god.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we're not there yet. So right now we do still need some data. We hope to reduce that requirement over time. But we do need 2 years worth of data currently.
Got it. So what is so if I was crunching the numbers at home and was thinking about this, like should I try out the music or should I apply for this advance from the music fund? What if I'm looking at my back 2 years of data? What should I be looking at? Is it pretty cut and dry that it's like, all right, if this song made $10,000 in the last 2 years, then it'd be like, oh, I'll probably get $10,000 from them because we can expect that the song is going to make another $10,000 over the next 2 years, kind of thing.
It's not quite as simple as that because and the other cool thing is that there's no fee for applying or anything. So if you're curious, there's no downside to just seeing what offer you can get. And the way the UI works is once you've uploaded all your data, you just get a slider that shows like how much we can offer you, and you can just see like what is the range that we could offer you. So right now we have a maximum of $50,000 per artist and a maximum of $10,000 per track. Just because we want diversification. We also do currently have a minimum of that we will like a $5,000 minimum. So that sort of artist earning between $10,000 and $100,000 a year. Over time, we would definitely want to lower that, but that's where we are right now. So the reason it's not quite so simple as that is because there's all sorts of things that factor into our calculations. So, for example, on our end, we would like to have a balanced portfolio. So, for example, if we have like a ton of rap music, say, in our portfolio, then you might, and you're a rapper, then we might offer you less because we don't want more. We don't necessarily want even more rap music in our portfolio. But if you're like a country music star, we may be like, not have much country music, so we may offer you more in that case because we want to balance out the portfolio. I think.
Why do you want to balance out the portfolio? Why is that important?
It has to do with risk. So what's very important for investors. Obviously, when people think about investing, they tend to think about what's the return. People like to think about Bitcoin or Tesla stock recently, how it's like this massive return. But for like many investors, that's important. But the other thing that's important is the volatility. So the fact that the investment is predictable. Because if I'm a big investor and I know that I'm going to get like 5% guaranteed for the next 4 years, then I can use that knowledge to basically rely on that money, and so that enables me to do all sorts of things. So that low variance, like things not going up and down a lot, is very valuable to the people that we get our money from, and so that's why we want that balanced portfolio. Because as genres become popular or less popular. So, rap music may be popular now, but then in, a year's time, who knows, maybe like some other kind of music will take off and, that could impact our portfolio. But if we have all sorts of music, then one goes up, then another one may go down, but overall it stays fairly stable.
That makes sense. Okay. So it's about diversifying the portfolio, not just we want to showcase a multitude of artists on our website kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, but that's what we're looking for. So we're not trying to like make a huge amount of money from each track. As I said, we're sort of targeting 10 or 15% is what our algorithm sort of strives for. But equally as important is that we have like steady income. As I said, that's very attractive to investors on the sort of back end. that kind of steady income. So we would really like and that's where we need that balancing of different genres and.
Got it. So when you mentioned the slider earlier, for when an artist gets approved, describe to me this slider. So I'm and what that looks like. So it's kind of like you get more money if you want to give up a bigger percentage for a longer period of time. Is that kind of how it works?
Basically, yes. So for example, you might see a slider that says you could get between 5,000 and 35,000, for example, and for $5,000, maybe you give up 10% of these 4 tracks or something like that for 2 years, and then for $35,000, you give up 40% of these 20 tracks or something like that. So again, the idea is it's up to the artist. It depends how much money you want and what kind of risk profile you're looking for. Because as I said, you may want to just give up a small amount and roll the dice that I'm going to be super successful over the next 2 years, or you may want to like hedge your bets and say, okay, I would like to get $30,000 now in the bank, certain, so that I can definitely make those videos I want to make. And I'm happy to give up a larger percentage for that. Again, fully up to the artist to decide their sort of risk tolerance.
That makes sense. So you keep talking about investors. Right. I'm assuming that your funding is coming from investors, like most startups.
Yeah. So to be clear, that yes. So there's 2 kinds of investors that we have. So there's investors who are investing in the company who believe what we're doing as a company and think that we're going to be a successful company, and then there's other investors who want exposure to music assets as an investment instrument, basically. So they want to diversify their portfolios. They don't, it's like investors, professional investors will put some money in the stock market, some money in real estate. The interesting thing that's occurred is that many investors now would like to put some money in music assets, for example. They're after a balanced portfolio, because if the real estate market tanks or the stock market tanks, music, and we've actually seen this recently, like when the stock market did tank, music royalties, they dipped a little bit, I think, as people's commuting patterns changed, but it stayed fairly flat. So I think there's another class of investors who just very interested in music as a sort of new asset class. And you see like some big funds like Hypnosis is one of the big ones they're actually based out of the UK, and they
That's
actually
an investing firm?
Yeah, so
Hypnosis,
they're actually buying catalog from like high-end artists, and they've raised millions of dollars on the London stock market to go out and buy part of Prince's back catalog or something like that. But again, they're doing it by hand. They're not doing it in an automated way, so that pushes them towards the high end. But because and that's something else I should have mentioned, that the whole process for an artist on our platform is all self-service. You don't need to talk to anyone. You just come to our website, upload the information, go through all the closing steps, and you don't need to speak to anyone. And we've had artists come to our website, apply, get money, and they haven't spoken to anyone. So it's very egalitarian in that sense. It's open to everyone. You don't need to know someone or be recommended or be in the club to sort of to get funding. Anyone can apply.
Right. I love that. I mean, I love that it is open to anyone. That is one of the biggest challenges and struggles for artists in the music industry, just in general, is that a lack of connections. And so,
right.
A lot of people think that, if they could only get connected to the right people,
right.
Then they could get help with the various aspects of their career and that kind of stuff. Whereas, so not only is it, I love that they don't actually have to know anybody, that anybody can apply. That's fantastic.
Right.
And it's also, it seems very scalable on your end, because it's like you mentioned, the company out of UK going after Prince's back catalog.
Hypnosis,
hypnosis, they that seems like I'm just picturing the how those meetings work. Like, I mean, if Prince were alive, there was no way that he'd be selling anything. No one would touch anything of his work. But but just like, the whining and the dining of the estate,
Right.
and who's running this, and you got to do this, we're going to fly out there and blah 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 blah. And it's
Right.
like, yeah, you get, and then once you then you get part of the catalog, then it's like, all right, well, now now we have the work of actually exploiting that and monetizing it. How are we going to, and so it's,
Right.
it's a very different process and business model. And whereas like this seems a lot, not just scalable, but this seems that it would work in a, it just seems like better long-term strategy, because there's not as much costs to do what you need to do, and if you get enough artists on board, I can definitely see how it can scale in a way that would make everybody money, and that the business model seems to work. The other thing that I like from an artist perspective personally is that, let's say you go under next year. Let's say you lose all your investors and bye music
Right.
fund. Sucks,
Right.
but let's just say that happens. No fault to the artist. Like, the artist doesn't lose anything. They already got their money, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
like that. That's what, because when I look at like
this.
like I interview all the distributors out there and stuff like that, and like, there's new distribution companies that pop up every day with
Right.
various business models and this and that, and if they go under, which some of them do go under, the artist is left with their pants by their ankles, because they're like, well, what do I do now? Like, I can't even get my music down from the from the
Right.
DSPs. And like, I've heard horror stories of artists, like the DSPs, like Spotify and Apple Music, are trying to pay the artist, but because the distributor has gone under, that connection is lost, and the music
Right.
is still up. And so they're making money, but the artist is not receiving that money, because the distributor is the entity between the
Right.
streaming service and the artist, and now they're gone. So it's like, you're not controlling distribution. People can use the distributor. So
Right.
and they use their own distributor. You are just on that distributor as a collaborator, as somebody
Right.
that the distributor will pay directly. And so it seems fairly streamlined. So yeah, I mean, like, I guess what I'm curious is I would imagine it's not an endless pit of money that you're working with, and so it seems very scalable. But are you guys actively going out and seeking investors to expand that pool of money, and like, are you public about how much money you have on hand to give out to artists in advances?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's from our point of view, there's somewhat of an interesting balancing act between like the amount of artists we have coming in and the amount of money we have to give out. And obviously, if we have too many artists coming in and we didn't have enough money, that would be bad. And it's also bad if we don't have enough artists. So that's the challenge on our end. But that just comes with the territory of starting a new company. We have investors currently, such that we have about 5 or 10 million that we have access to. So
Okay.
that's like a very good start. And I think it's only going to get easier for us, because the nice thing now is that I think the first deal we made was like about a year ago. So we do have some like data and track record now that we can show to investors to show that this
Cool.
does work. And as we scale up, it only gets easier for us, because as I sort of hinted at earlier, there is a big appetite right now for investors to have exposure to this asset class of music. And there was a few years ago there was an interesting article about how British Rail Pension Fund was like suddenly super interested in they're not one of our investors, I should be clear, but it's just interesting to show like people you wouldn't imagine being interested in music royalties, like
Sure.
there's a lot of interest out there. Obviously, we're too small currently for those kind of like giant institutional investors, but the hope is that as we scale up and get larger, we will get on their radar, and then we'll have access to even more money. And then the good thing about that is that, we can scale up. And the other nice thing is that as we scale up, we can actually even like offer better and better deals, because it's kind of like insurance. You can think of it as insurance. Like, as you spread the risk over a larger pool of people, you can offer just better and better deals. So you can sort of think about it like, and to some extent, as an artist, you can think about it a little bit that way, because it's kind of like I'm sort of locked in that money, and I'm not taking the risk, as I sort of alluded to earlier. Like I can sell 10% and get that money now, so I don't have to worry about, is it going to make money or not.
Got it. So theoretically, as you grow as a company, artists who want $100,000 can come in, and potentially you may offer those deals in the future. Artists may want $1 million, and who knows, maybe this becomes the new model where people are able to find their funding here and stay independent. We're starting to see success stories every day of artists reaching those kinds of heights where they're making a few $1 million a year on streaming completely independently, but it's over the course of a year, and maybe they need an influx of cash today for a project they're working on, and if they have the history, that could work. So I definitely see how it could scale.
That's the plan. I think we've sort of internally we've joked about some famous artists just they want to buy a new car or a Lamborghini or something, and they just log on to the music fund, and a few hours later they have like $500,000 or whatever it is that they need. But that's in the future currently, but
that's
why
cool.
not?
Why not?
Absolutely.
I love that. Awesome. Well, John, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing the insight about the music fund. It's such an innovative model, and I love seeing any kind of innovation in the music industry. And when especially disruptive innovation like this, and ways that companies can empower and enable artists to run their own careers successfully. And I think so far you're doing a great job. The artists that I've spoken to have only had positive things to say about the Music Fund. So all the best with everything. And I look forward to checking in with you on how it's going in the future.
Thanks, Ari. Thanks for inviting me on. I enjoyed it.